Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Alan Wake 2
Mm-hmm.
had a kind of surprise DLC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they kind of previewed it before, but it came out basically right after Summer Games Fest, and Doug jumped immediately at the chance to go back to Alan Wake 2. Night Springs is the name of it. 3 episodes, 3 different playable characters.
Yep.
I think kind of all what if scenarios, right? So the whole kind of concept, it's like, what if different things happened? And again, I feel like DLC always, there's potentials for spoilers here for Alan Wake 2, I would assume.
Yes.
Or is it disconnected enough?
No, I think there's enough. I think anything interesting is going to be spoilery kind of stuff. So just assume spoilers for Alan Wake 2. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what exactly is this? Where, because it's not just straight what if, what is it?
So they are kind of what if scenarios, but it's also kind of that weird thing with Alan Wake thing where there's a lot of what if scenarios going on at any given time and what's really canon and you guys think this is canon or don't. It's probably one of the weirdest DLCs I've ever played. It's really, really cool. So it is broken up into 3 episodes. I'll say the new content here is mostly going to be writing and voice acting stuff. Don't expect going to new places and new levels. And that kind of thing. It's just kind of recontextualizing areas. So you're flying this one character, for example, episode 2 stars Jesse from Control, and it takes place just in Little Coffee World area. Mm-hmm. You play as this one with Rose. You kind of play in some areas that are near the town. Besides that, the writing and stories for each of these things is really cool. So it's set as three episodes. One you play as Rose, and you basically play through you basically play through her perspective and kind of through a fan fiction of hers of which is just awesome. I'll talk about that one a little bit. The second one is where you play as Jesse. This is probably the weakest of all of them, actually.
Ooh, that's sad to hear.
Yeah, it's kind of set up as
weakest,
a prequel.
Weakest but still good? Or just
no,
actually kind
it's
of weak?
It's just not very good. And the content, even when I finished it, I was like, what was the point of that one? It's sort of like a prequel that she's in this area looking for her brother, but it's also kind of like a loose retelling of Control. And then the third one is Quantum Break 2.
There you go.
And definitely the most interesting of them. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about each one. It's probably the best way to do it, and I'll do my best to avoid spoilers. But yeah, so episode 1, Rose is the best character in Alan Wake, and maybe
Rose
the Control.
Is great.
And this is just 100% pure Rose, just exactly what you'd want from it. It's the plot is basically you're playing as Rose. You're kind of playing at this fan fiction where she needs to go and save Alan Wake from his evil twin brother. So there's a lot of interactions between her and this weird fan fiction version of Scratch. And since it kind of takes place from her perspective, everything is just really bubbly and bright. The whole episode has a pink hue to it. When they get into action combat, it plays this sort of hoedown music. It's it's really hard to describe, but it's kind of like a 90s comedy thing, but this very sort of think of teenage 90s teenage girl trying to find her one true love sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that dang evil brother keeps getting in the way. And he's got a motorcycle and he's a bad guy. And it's and he's captured Alan Wake and you got to go save him. And it's really funny. It made me laugh out loud multiple times. And that's the thing I was about Alan Wake is it does a really good thing of kind of dipping its toes in different genres. So that's just
shifts are great.
Exactly. And it's just a straight up comedy. And they also give her an auto shotgun, a super powerful shotgun. And they kind of play with jokes on the fact that Rose has a shotgun that's really, really good. I think and Scratch is kind of terrified of her because it's Rose's who is a little off kilter. I really like that she has this, I'm not sure who the actress is. I'd be curious who it is. She has this very kind of fun sort of vacant stare to her, this bubbly personality, but she just has this sort of vacant stare that freaks out Scratch and stuff. And it's just really, really cool. That one is just that's just good time stuff. The second one though would
So is it all just kind of I guess how relevant does it feel? Does it feel that contextualize something in Alan Wake 2? Does it feel that added on to it, or is it just kind of just a fun hey, let's play more in this world?
So in Alan Wake 2, there's a point near the end of the game where Rose just kind of shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
at the old folks home.
And
And it's
that's
just
kind of why I'm curious, because like a
Yeah.
lot of like, because she has like, she mentioned some of the stuff like of how she's talking to Alan Wake this whole time.
Yes. And it's like kind of that story, but it's also sort of like a weird fan fiction-y retelling of that
Okay.
context of like Alan Wake reaching out to her sort of thing. So it kind of seems like it's sort of contextualizing her basically having this like sort of weird hallucinatory Night Springs episode that gets her to Alan Wake near the end of the thing. The second one I don't even really want to talk about too much because it's just strange and like doesn't quite work. You're playing as Jessie in sort of like a prequel-y kind of setting where she's looking for her brother and there's some government agency after her. And you go to Coffee World and there's like this conspiracy with a cult at Coffee World. It just doesn't work for whatever reason. I don't even know how to describe it, but it just like doesn't work very well.
Does it feel like it's like shoehorning in Control? Like, is that kind of like the issue? Like, it's just like we knew that like you wanted Jessie, here's Jessie, fine. Is like kind of that feeling of like you almost feel forced into like dealing with Jessie because that's what people want.
I wouldn't put it that negatively. It's more like kind of trying to sort of retell Control in like sort of an Alan Wakey kind of way, but it just doesn't quite work. Like, and the thing I'm actually wondering is that if I'm mixing some potential big context with Control 2, because the other episodes feel like they really fit in, and like you can really see the context to them. And this one I just felt like I was like kind of missing something.
Almost like how the Control DLC kind of was like, you really need to know your Alan Wake for this Control Alan Wake DLC to make it. So like you really need to know Control and potentially where Control is going for this Control DLC to make sense. So when we come back in 3 years after playing Control 2, it'll be like, oh, that whole Coffee World bit now makes sense. Like,
exactly.
That feeling.
Yeah, and like the thing is like it just doesn't work really well. It's not super fun. And that's like basically all I got to say about it, which is it's kind of disappointing. It's got some neat control stuff, but it's not the badass Jessie coming in full blown director, you know, Jessie coming in and taking care of guys. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a weird side story. Third one though. Okay. Third episode.
This is one that you told me a little bit about already, so I'm curious.
Yes. So some context. Actually a few different contexts. So they were going to make Quantum Break 2. Yep. It just didn't move forward. Quantum Break was a super stupid expensive game. Just apparently didn't sell very well. They didn't make a second game. Yep. This really, really reminds me of, there was a main writer on Half-Life 2, and he basically released the story of Half-Life 3 on his blog one day with like character names sort of like scratched out and like missing sort of thing. So it's like sort of like a you can't sue me version of this.
Gordon Greeman was doing
yeah, or like, yes, exactly. It's actually super cool. If anybody's interested in like Half-Life 2 stuff and Half-Life 3 and all that kind of thing, there is like an actual Half-Life 3 plot out there. And this is very much that. It's like this sort of like high level bullet points of what Quantum Break 2 was going to be. It stars the guy who was the star of Quantum Break 2. Quantum Break 1.
Who does have a role in Alan Wake 2.
Yes, as the sheriff. Yeah. And in this one, he is he's an actor, and they're getting ready to do a video game version of Time Stoppers, which is some sort of like kind of like Doctor Who like TV show.
Okay, yeah.
And it has a lot of cool time travel stuff. If you're interested in Quantum Break, it has some really neat stuff there. But the thing that's really cool is like, while the other ones are kind of like, Rose gets from like point A to B. Like that's the whole thing. Yep. Jessie does, I don't know, whatever. This episode's just not very good. But this one, it's like they hit like potentially all the major plot points that would have come out in Quantum Break, but they do in like this sort of like weird short form version, where they're clearly like doing a budget version of what the thing is. Mm-hmm. So it really relies on its writing, which is really good. It really relies on like the acting of the characters, because it's like, okay, we can't do this big scene, but we can kind of talk about this scene and the implications of that scene.
Okay.
Going into it. It makes me really sad that Quantum Break 2 didn't happen, because they had some super cool ideas, and this just kind of feels like, okay, let's just get those out there. Like, it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen, but maybe for this little bit we can. And it's really cool how they like sort of incorporate the Control mythos into that, the Alan Wake mythos into that, and like really kind of incorporate Quantum Break into the Remedyverse in a more official way. I think the sort of hints they did in Alan Wake 2, it was like fun, but it didn't feel official, and they kind of like just like very glancingly talking about Quantum Break. But this is like, no, this is how we can actually incorporate those mythos into it. And some of the fun stuff with Quantum Break, which I kind of forgot about, is that the woman who plays Jessie in Control is the second main character in Quantum Break.
Yep, didn't know that.
Sure, she was just like, she's not playing the same character or anything like that, but they kind of play with that with that aspect in like kind of neat ways. They play with the fact that he's the sheriff in the Alan Wake 2 world. But it's just really, really cool because it does. And I think it's almost like unique in how big the ideas they're doing and how they interpret that through the Alan Wake 2 assets, that it kind of works, it kind of doesn't, but like it felt really, really satisfying. And it felt like, okay, I kind of got Quantum Break 2. Like I get what they were going for. I kind of, whatever. There's no hope for Quantum Break 3, but like just getting that bit was like, oh, that was worth it. That was cool.
It doesn't feel like rushed or crazy because you're condensing what was probably like a 12-hour story into what, like 45, 50 minutes?
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. Like it definitely feels like there was probably, you could make a full game out of this. That's what's kind of cool. It's like, imagine someone kind of give you like a vertical slice or like an elevator pitch, and that's what this is.
Okay.
For Quantum Break 2, and that's where it feels. So like there's some missing parts. I don't even want to spoil the end, but how they kind of get to some of the bigger moments of Quantum Break 2 that they really couldn't do with Alan Wake 2 assets was really, really neat and really clever. But I just remember like kind of jaw-dropping moments that happened in that I was like, that was just like really cool of how they wrapped everything together, and like kind of where they left that character he was like kind of godlike at the end of Quantum Break. And like, what do you do with a sort of godlike character now? And then how do you incorporate Alan Wake 2 and do that all within an hour? So it's just like a really impressive, interesting piece of media as a result.
Do you need context from Quantum Break to understand what's going on with it? Like if I never played Quantum Break, would it make any sense to me?
Probably. Well, see, there's too many spoiler stuff. Like the main antagonist of that is Door.
Okay. Oh,
who was in Quantum Break? This, not the same actor, but was going to be the same actor. Was the lead of the evil agency in Quantum Break 1.
Yeah.
So in this one, it's that same character-ish, Mr. Door, and how they interact with each other. So I think there's enough interesting stuff. Like if you're just following as like another Alan Wake 2 story, which would be pretty cool. And if it's just like a Control story, like kind of like a split off of that, like it's interesting. But it's got some, it's so cool. It's like a Quantum Break 2 thing. And I played Quantum Break 2 like 10 years ago. Like I barely remember that game, kind of know like the high level stuff of it, but even understanding the high level, it's like, oh, what they had planned for 2 was just like a very cool, expensive thing. And like, at least we're getting to see a glimpse of that. Like I love making ofs and that sort of stuff. It kind of feels like that. And it's just very fun because I think it kind of opens with both the actor and Sam Lake playing themselves, discussing potential Time Stoppers game, which is very fun.
That's kind of cool.
It is cool. It's cool. It's cool. I think a lot of people though are like talking about the DLC as a whole. It's like, well, the gameplay is not there. The gameplay is not there. Like it's kind of weird.
To be fair, that was kind of one of the weaker points of Alan Wake 2 anyway. That was my holdback with Alan Wake 2 was the gameplay. So
yeah, and I think the thing is like when you're expecting a DLC, you're expecting like new levels and new that, and the new thing here is not that. The new thing here is like new story, new dialogue, new.
We didn't bring all the like level designers and gameplay designers back, and we brought the writers back in for the DLC.
Yes. I think they were just looking at their budget and trying to figure out how to do this.
We can bring in 2 departments back to make this thing.
Yes, exactly. So it's cool though. Nice. It's super cool. I liked it a lot, but I loved Alan Wake 2. Yeah. I think if you weren't a huge fan of Alan Wake 2, I don't think the DLC is going to do much for you.
If you weren't a huge fan, you're probably not looking at the DLC anyway.
True. Yeah.
Anyway, we are Workforce Gaming. You can leave a comment below. Subscribe to our channel. There's a link to support us on Coffee as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.